I'm here with Coach Jonathan Kaplan, head coach at Swim RVA, and they're doing some pretty revolutionary things at Swim RVA that I'm excited to dive right into, really, Coach. And thanks for taking the time to join me.
Oh man, thank you so much for having me. I gotta say, I'm a huge fan of everything you guys are doing. I think you and I know we get along great. We're like kindred spirits. But I just love the philosophy that you take with Swim Strong, and so I'm genuinely honored to get to chat with you.
I appreciate that a lot, brother. The feeling is very much mutual, and I love the way that you approach coaching and the way that you've brought that to your team across the board. And there's very practical ways in which you're doing it. And I really want to spend this podcast focusing on the coach-athlete relationship and how you can really maximize that as a coach of any level, because I feel like it's something that people are realizing more and more, that if you don't have good communication between both coach and athlete, you're not going to have nearly as much success as you could. And that's something that you do really well. So just first, from a philosophy perspective, obviously coach has to be the one writing the workouts and, leading the charge. But what does that look like at Swim RVA? What's coach-athlete relationship mean to you, and how do you explain it to your staff?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because, every coach has their own different coaching style. It's kind of like breaststroke. You think of like the breaststroke final at the Olympics. There's like 8 different styles of breaststroke, but there are commonalities between all of them. So as the head coach and the director at Swim RVA, my responsibility is to make sure that I allow my coaches to have their own coaching style, because they're all exceptional in different ways. But we got to make sure there's certain commonalities that exist from one coach to the next. A lot of the commonalities that we really zero in on are relationship building, because at the end of the day, we don't really zero in on how fast we're making the athletes. Like, don't get me wrong, like, we're training, we're doing the X's and O's, we're studying the research, and we're doing all that stuff. But all of the smartest coaching in the world absolutely gets you nowhere if you don't build a good rapport, a good foundation of trust with the athletes. And so that's what I'm encouraging my coaches to do, is just making sure that the number one place that we're focusing on is trying to build the person inside. And that we find that if you build a better person, they're going to be a better listener. They'll be a harder worker. They'll be a better teammate. They'll be better outside of swimming in the other aspects of their lives. So when we talk to the kids, the way we talk to them, it's all built around trying to improve the person inside. And in my experience, and in this point, it's in application, not just a theory. But now it's been happening for 2.5 decades, and the athletes end up swimming really, really well, because they are more likely to do the right things for the right reasons, like, even when no one's watching.
What would you say, you're talking about, because I feel like there's a lot of coaches who talk about focusing on the person first, but you really live it out. Like, I've seen it. We've had conversations. Me and you can talk for hours on end, no doubt, and have very similar philosophies in that. But a lot of people have that, like, in their mission statement, or this is what we do with our team culture, and this is what we believe. But then you go to a practice and you go to meets, and you're like, I don't actually see it. So
I don't feel it.
Yeah. So what does that look like practically? Because I can feel it with you. But what do you guys do at practice? What are some practices that you have to build that rapport in a really meaningful way, as opposed to it just being like what we talk about in theory?
Something on paper. Yeah. The other example of that is people throw the word family around a lot. And it's like, yeah, we're a family, and maybe like certain people are a family, but there's always going to be people on the outside that are like, oh, I don't really feel like I'm a part of the family. So from a coaching perspective, it starts back in my philosophy. So I grew up in a very small town in Central Florida, but it's a very good town. It's called Winter Haven, Florida.
Yeah.
All you swim nerds out there, that's where Rowdy Gaines is from. We went to the same high school and everything.
Yes, sir.
I actually grew up swimming in the Rowdy Gaines Olympic pool. So he was my source of inspiration. And now he's just, one of the greatest people ever. But anyway, I grew up on a real small team. And so everybody knew everybody, and it was it really was a family. It's easier to be a family when you're a small team. But I always told myself that no matter how big the team got, and I wanted the team to get big so I can serve more people in a positive way, I got to make sure that the quality is there and that everybody gets to feel that family atmosphere. So the way we approach it at Swim RV is, one, you got to make sure that the coach to swimmer ratio is good. So, and then at the actual practice, I talked to my coach about touch points, not literal touch points. We're talking about metaphorical touch points, but the touch points start before they ever get in the water. So I want my coaches there early. I want the kids excited to get there early, and they love the relationship that they built with their coach, because one of the first things they're going to ask them when they walk on the pool deck was, "You had a soccer game this weekend, didn't you?" "Yeah." "Did you score a goal?" "You did score a goal, dude. That's amazing." Or you ask about the equestrian tournament, or you knew that the brother of the swimmer was in a mountain biking, tournament or something like that. And you genuinely care about who they are outside of swimming.
Well, I've noticed that you post on your account things that are not swimming related at all that kids are doing. Shout outs of people in theater, shout outs of people who finish a triathlon, shout outs of people doing all kinds of things at their school or clubs that they're involved in. Yeah. That's cool.
By design. Well, first of all, shout out you for checking out the Swim RVA Instagram page. Yeah. I'm glad you recognize that, honestly, because it's very easy, like really easy, especially when you're having a lot of success, to just completely flood your Instagram or your social media with the success of the athletes. And they deserve it. Like, they work hard. Absolutely. So you break a record, like, we want to celebrate that. But we celebrate the entire person. And the entire person is way more than just a swim coach. I tell the athletes and the parents also all the time, swimming is just something that you do. It's not who you are. Mm-hmm. And while we are focusing on the way we talk to the athletes, those touch points that we get at practice, we are trying to build a person that is going to learn how to go through those ups and downs that they're going to experience in the rest of their life. Well, we're like that safety net that teaches them how to go through those ups and downs safely now, so that when they get to the rest of their life, and they don't have that support staff of mom and dad there, the coaches there, your teammates there, they know how to handle that. Right. But if swimming is your entire world and it's like everything to you, and you don't have any balance in the rest of your life, well, you're going to go through failures. That's a part of learning and growing, is going through failure. But if it feels like it's everything, when you fail, you feel like everything in your life is failing. And I don't think that's a safe place for anyone to be, really, but especially teenagers who are still growing and maturing. So we want our athletes to be balanced. We want them to be able to do other sports and get to interact with swimming the way they want to. They want to dive into it and no pun intended. They want to dive into it and be totally locked in on swimming. That's good. We're still going to talk about the things that are going on in the rest of their lives. And honestly, and this is for all the coaches out there, but coaches, I think we need to be the example for them. That's one of the things swim coaches are the worst at, is we think that we aren't ever allowed to miss a practice. You're never allowed to miss a meet. You have to sacrifice everything in the rest of your life to be there for these kids, while simultaneously telling them that they need to have balance in their life. Good. So we need to set the example for them.
That's good. It is very easy to say those things to kids and know they're true, but if you don't actually live them yourself, it says a lot more. It says that you worship swimming as like your whole life and nothing else, if that's what you spend all your time and energy and attention towards, and that sends the wrong message. So what's the message you're sending with your life? It sounds like you think about what's the message you're sending with your words. I love several really practical things there. Good coach to athlete ratio, no matter how big the team gets. Getting to practice early, knowing what's happening outside of swim, and actually asking them when they're walking into practice.
Right.
Social media shout outs, where everybody is now. Everybody's got social media. And if you only post about records and swimming accomplishments, it's also going to show that that's the only thing that you care about. And,
right.
And that's something that even is a significant passion of ours. We love celebrating records and people doing amazing things in the pool and out of the pool.
Competitive sport.
Exactly. That's what we're, that is the goal of our sport, is to get better and to perform. But we also want to give all kinds of tools and resources that are helpful for life, both in and out of the pool, as much as we can, to show that it's not just, if every post we ever put up was just a swim time, I think that would send the opposite message of what our mission statement is, in growing people as well. And so I love all those different things. It's very rare that you see on social media accounts, teams posting about kids, what they're involved in their school and activities and other hobbies. I find that very unique, and you're obviously practicing what you preach. And that's one of the huge reasons why I wanted to bring you on, just to like dig a little bit more into that. What does that look like? What's the nitty gritty? And while we're on this subject of like what you praise does show what you value, you have some pretty unique things, whatever you're willing to share. I know you shared a little bit with me offline, but some pretty unique things that you're implementing and continuing to evolve, and just what you're recognizing throughout your program. But would you mind talking just a little bit about what are the things you focus on praising as kids develop?
Yeah, so it's things that we're already zeroing in on, but we've got even more of it. Like we have an actual plan for how we're going to be implementing this even more starting this fall. But at the end of the day, I don't know if you remember this, but many years ago, USA Swimming did a very big survey, and they really zeroed in on like why athletes swim, and they broke it down by different age groups and stuff like that, and by gender. But the three biggest reasons were fun, and they swam because they wanted to make their parents proud, and they swam because they wanted to make their coaches proud. And so many times, coaches are really, really, really good about getting the coach to swimmer coach to swimmer relationship really good. But we too often forget that there's more than just two dots in this equation. The career, the success of a swimmer, I used to call it a triangle, and now I've actually moved to a square. I talk with my hands in case you can't tell. There's your square, everybody. It used to be the parents, the coach, and the athlete. I used to think of it as a triangle, but now I've added a fourth one because your teammates are such a huge part of your success. So anyway, I know this isn't exactly what you asked. I'm getting there, I promise. But our focus is every single one of those 4 points, right? If we can have the coaches on the same page with the parents, and the parents are on the same page with the athletes, and all the teammates are on the same page and they're there supporting each other, you're going to get a lot more success in building them as an athlete and building them as a person. So I actually, I kind of require, but I don't really have to require, but my coaches have to stay in good contact with the parents. And so one of the things is like parents just want to know how their kids are doing. And a lot of times coaches like to put a buffer, between them and the parents. So like, hey, I don't come to your work and tell you how to work. So don't come to my job and tell me how to work. Right. That's a fair thought. The only problem with that is these are their kids, and this is their livelihood. They just want their kids to be happy and successful. And so we tend to not put enough emphasis on the coach to parent relationship. We as a society, like our industry, but at Swim RVA, that's a huge priority. Huge priority. Don't just get to know the kids and be on the same page. Talk things through with the parents. When I first started doing that, I've been with programs who are like, "Why would you do that?" And they're going to call you all the time. You're like, I know. That's what I want. I want them to call me. I want to talk to them, because what happens is they can hear it in your voice. They can see it in your eyes. They can feel how much you love and care about their kids, and they're going to question much less. And then if they do, it's legitimate, and you need to look internally and reflect and think, oh man, they're probably right. I do need to be better. So if we master that square, then we can start, we're all together on the same page. And now we can start having very positive effect on what the outcome is with the athlete based on how we talk to them. Because otherwise you can be on the same page, but mom and dad can be on a different page with the kids, and the kid wants to please the coach and they want to please them. And what if they're contradicting because they're not on the same page? So all the communication that you have can be perfect, and a parent can accidentally be undoing all of it because they just want to support their kid and they just don't know. So anyway, that's in order to be effective as a communicator to the athletes, you gotta get that square under wraps. But what we've been doing, and what we're doing even more now, is we're focusing a lot on the early stages of swimming. And I think I'm not saying anything revolutionary, but I think most coaches don't think of the harm that we're doing to our own swimmers without even intending to, but we're doing it at a young age, and I think it's affecting them at an older age. For example, how many coaches coach like high school kids or even college kids, and they're thinking, I am trying to get them to stop focusing so much on their time or so much on did you go a best time, they're coming after the race and they had a great swim, but they added a second and a half and they just shut down or they're melting down and they can't even keep sight of the fact that they did their underwaters correctly for the first time or they finished the race better or something like that. It's all about the best time. So we have to spend so much of our time and energy undoing that later in their career to get them to start focusing on the process, not so much on the outcome. Because if you focus on the process, then the outcome ends up being better.
So you're saying, to jump in just real quick, the damage that you're mentioning that a lot of coaches are doing to athletes.
All of us, the whole sport, not just coaches, parents, coaches, the way it's set up. Yeah, go ahead.
Is that so for everybody involved in the sport? That's a much better way to put it. Is that the conversations are always centered around your time? Did you go best time?
And even if it's positive, right? Like it's not like we're being negative. Nobody is intentionally harming the children. We do this because we love the children.
Mm-hmm.
But how many times does a 7 or 8 year old come over and the first thing that comes out of your mouth is like, whoa, you dropped 3 seconds on that. That was amazing. Right. Or the child comes over and you do that enough times that they're going to get a dopamine hit from that. They want that feeling. So they are learning, whether you were intending to or not, they're learning. I want to please my coach. Pleasing my coach means going a best time. And the parents will do the same thing. They'll go upstairs or after the meet's over and they're like, wow, you dropped time and everything today. That's amazing. Right. Or even more harmful, not intended to be harmful, but even more harmful, they have rewards for going a best time and everything. If you go a best time and everything, we're going to go to Dairy Queen afterwards or something like that. And the kid wants to please the parents. They want to please the coaches. So they're thinking, I got to go. But then all of us coaches, we've been through it. We've been there, done that. We know the kid comes over, they add a second and a half or 2 seconds in their 100 breaststroke, but they did all these things really great and they just didn't go a best time, but it was a great swim. And we want to pick them up and they're devastated, right? Because they've learned that.
Yeah.
That gets learned very early in swimming because it's very easy to go a best time just by rolling out of bed and being an inch taller, or you grew up and you just went best times because time passed by, and you didn't really actually make changes. So we're trying to zero in on what you actually need to do, the day-to-day things. We're going to be shifting our focus, and we're doing it already. We're shifting our focus away from talking about the best times as much, and it might be like 10% of what we talk about, not 70 or 80. And we're putting all of our praise into the skills that we've deemed necessary for them to be successful. We have an incentive program that they're going to get rewards based off of doing the skills right. So they're going to get that dopamine release on a daily, weekly basis through practice and through the praise they get for doing everything else right. And then the result is going to be hopefully a best time, but the result is 5, 6, 8 years later, when they're in high school, the senior coaches aren't having to spend all of their time trying to, undo the damage we did. And can you imagine how effective we would be as coaches if it's a collaboration instead of you spending your time trying to undo, that damage?
Yeah, you end up trying to be a therapist on deck for somebody who's doesn't go best time, and they're wondering what their worth is, like if they're even valuable because they didn't swim fast, or like or everybody's upset at them, or they failed themselves in their failure, and whatever thought. There's so many negative thoughts that go through swimmers' heads when they don't swim best times, because I do think you're right. I think we're conditioned that way, and there is certainly a lot of research around external or extrinsic rewards that actually demotivate you. So caution to parents out there, beware of offering your kids or dangling a carrot in front of them saying, if this, then that. Because it will help. There's research that shows it helps in that moment and damages them significantly long term because it steals away their inner drive, their inner creativity, their inner desire to be great for themselves. Nothing wrong with celebrating, but let it be a surprise. Like your Dairy Queen example, we're just going to go out and celebrate because you did amazing and we were so proud of the effort you gave. Very different from saying, if you go this time, we'll go to Dairy Queen, right? Two different things, same action, very different approach and mindset to it. And so what you're saying is backed by science. I've actually been doing a ton, and I know you do a ton of reading on this, and there's but I've been doing a ton of reading on the human mind and extrinsic versus intrinsic motivation and rewards and how people respond to these things. And you're spot on. And it's really interesting that our sport, even at the youngest age, is the first thing we celebrate. And I've done this so many times. So like I'm growing at it too.
I probably have some people who've known me over the years, and they might be listening to this and they're like, yeah, but didn't you have a program that, this is, I'm growing and maturing as a coach, which is why I want to share these things. Like I used to have a really cool award. And to this day, I haven't done it in probably like 5 years, but to this day, I still have kids ask me about it. And I call it the Unicorn Award. So it was, if you went a best time in every race, I called it a unicorn meet. And the unicorn meet was because it is unrealistic and almost mythological to expect to go a best time in every single race.
I love that.
So it was so mythological that it's as common as like seeing a unicorn. And so we used to get like unicorn keychains or unicorn things. And so I guess in talking it out loud, I still kind of had the right mindset. It's just be proud of it, but you shouldn't expect to go a best time. And I'll tell you along those lines, and I actually, when I started my own Instagram account a few years ago, this is one of the first things that I put out there. And it's probably my most proud reel, but I held up like a heat sheet and I said, you see this heat sheet? This isn't real. This is not a real swim meet. This is a compilation of all of the best events that you've ever done, the best you ever felt, the perfect 50 free, and then at a completely different meet, these are the perfect circumstances for your 100 fly. And yet when you go to a swim meet, you expect to be your best for all of those meets on that one single day. And it's unrealistic. And that kind of mindset led to the Unicorn Award. But I'll tell you the reason why this approach is so important, and this is kind of back to the original topic we were talking about, that coach to swimmer relationship, is because if a coach can spend more of their time collaborating with an athlete instead of telling an athlete what to do or what not to do, you're going to get a lot more investment from the athlete. You got to start with, they got to know that you care about them. Remember the old phrase, they don't care what you know until they know that you care. So you got to start there. But even if you've built that foundation, a lot of times you'll have the coach up here and the athlete will be down here and you're telling the athlete what to do. I always tell my athletes that I want, as time goes by, I want you to learn and I want to be here where I'm telling you, but you're giving me feedback and we're here. And then eventually we're going to go this way. And it's like to the point where I'm learning from you. That's the place I want to be. You can't get there if the athlete, one, doesn't have the confidence to speak what they feel because they're so focused on failed because I didn't go a best time. And then, God, can you imagine how great coaching would be? You're just collaborating on stuff. And science, you want to talk about science, the science will show you now that this generation of athlete, and probably even more so in the next generation, they want to have ownership. They want to know why they're doing what they're doing, and they want to have some ownership over the process. So that collaboration, you have the freedom to collaborate and talk it through. They're going to be way more invested if they know why they're doing it and they feel like some of it was a part of their idea or their plan. Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing. But I do feel like there are probably some insecurities, like a coach listening to this who's like, well, if I give athletes some autonomy, then like, is it really me coaching the set? Is it really me like doing that? Is it they're just going to run all over me and it's going to be chaos? Like I get people go to the opposite end of the spectrum and fear like giving athletes autonomy. And I mean, I push back hard on that. I wholeheartedly agree with you because I anybody who has ownership in their journey is going to feel heard, listened to, and bought into what you're doing. And they're going to understand what you said, why. If you know why you're doing something, I mean, athletes will run through a wall for you if they understand how much you care for them and why you're doing it, how that's helping move them towards their goals. But we just assume that sometimes we assume kids are too young to understand. They don't, they don't, it doesn't matter. Just do what I say. And I'm wondering, was there a shift at any point in your career? Did you shift from like, I'm talking at you versus we're working together, even with like younger kids? Is it something that's always been a part of your philosophy, or you've noticed a lot of like failures in the past of like, we just got stuck here and I realized I need to do it a different way? What's that journey?
No, that's
like?
Good. I've actually never had anybody ask me that before, but I know the answer instantly. I've always been that way, but it's more so because the team that I grew up on, the Winter Haven Stingrays, I had since I was 9, I had a phenomenal head coach. His name was Jim Grazier. He's coaching the Haines City Tritons now. He's just amazing. But Jim will tell you, back then, he wasn't a swimmer growing up, and he had never actually coached a swimming team before. He had done lessons at a YMCA. So like every level that I achieved going up through junior nationals and US Open and all that stuff, that was his first time too. So we were in like a collaborative process from 9 through college. And so that's all I ever knew. And so I've always coached that way. But there was a point in my career where it was confirmed, which always makes you feel good, because I went to we had junior nationals at University of Texas, and I was a firm believer in learning from like clinics and stuff like that, but also learning from watching people do. So I just set it up with Eddie Reese and Chris Kubik, so I could just stay an extra few days after juniors was over, and I just hung out with them and watched them do it. I don't know if you've ever seen. First of all, I think Eddie Reese is like probably the greatest coach of all time. No disrespect to anyone else, because there's some phenomenal amazing coaches out there, but you ever seen him on the pool deck? You walk in, well, obviously not anymore, but when you walk out, first he was playing foursquare with the kids on the pool deck, and then he's got all these plans, and we're talking about Olympians just left and right. And it's not like Eddie had to tell them every single thing to do. They knew what to do. They knew that it's their swimming. It was their responsibility to get it done. And he would go through and he would coach certain groups, but he would kind of check on others. And that was just the environment. And God, they were elite for so long, still are you know?
Yep.
So that was a good confirmation of like, I don't want athletes who are dependent upon me. I want athletes who are dependent upon themselves, and I'm just helping them get the most out of themselves.
Yeah.
And if I'm not there, I don't want them to crumble, right? Because now that takes us back to what we were saying earlier, where coaches feel like they have to be there all the time, because if I don't, it's going to get messed up.
Yeah.
I don't want to raise athletes like that.
Yeah.
Same with my kids. I want my kids to go make good decisions when I'm not there. I don't want them to only behave when mommy or daddy is around.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like there's so much more joy in coaching when you do that as well. You have that athlete coach relationship where there's actually feedback and you're actually hearing what they're saying and they're hearing what you're saying. It's so much more fun to coach that way too. And so for any coach who's maybe on the other side of the spectrum, I just tell my athletes what to do. A good first step, I think, could just be to be asking more questions, to ask how they've been feeling about yourself. Ask us a scary question. I feel like if we as coaches can't say, how did you like that set? What would you have changed? If we can't ask that and hear the answer from the athlete, like, we probably shouldn't be coaching, because you need to be able to hear negative and positive. Like, we are not the greatest thing since sliced bread. We don't know everything, and we are always learning. And I love that example you talked about, learning from Eddie Reese, because just like, lifelong learning is what the greatest coaches in the world do, in my opinion. Just lifelong learners who never have it figured out.
Right.
Who are always humble enough to, and you were like, yeah, I didn't always have I did focus more on times earlier. And now we're making these changes. And like, there are certain exercises that I used to do when I started doing dryland that I would never do again.
That's probably one of the biggest mistakes coaches can make, is probably the worst phrase that'll kill a program is, this is the way we've always done it. As soon as I hear that, my first thought is, I'm sure it's great, but let's start thinking about, what's next. Because I always tell coaches that the second you think you know everything and you're not learning, then you need to get that stopwatch out of your pocket, hang it up, and you need to call it a career. Because if you're not learning throughout the rest of your life, then you're not improving. But the thing is, we think that we can only learn from someone with more experience, or you can only learn from a coach who's coached an Olympian. If anything, sometimes those can be worse examples because they're not as relatable. You go to like an ASCA clinic or something like that, and they do a great job, but you're going to see it's a headline. They want people to want to go there because they got this coach who coached an Olympian. They're phenomenal, but what they give the advice is it may not help you with building a better relationship with the parents of your 8-year-old, coach kids.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. And I feel like, man, all this insight is amazing. And this is a great stopping point for this one. And I've been working on keeping these a little bit shorter because, as we said, me and you can go for a long time. And
no, Eric and I will talk for hours. We got to cut it off.
That's one of my goals this year is have the podcast be shorter because I can talk. So and listen,
I love. Now you're doing a great job.
I appreciate it. So thank you so much for being a guest on here. Keep up the amazing work that's happening at Swim RVA. It's such a blessing to be partnered with you and your team. It's we learn from you all the time. We're inspired by you and your kids, your parents, the coaches are lucky to have you running the show, and then everybody on your staff is amazing. And it's cool to see you setting new standards, thinking in new ways that are science-backed, data-backed, and just trying new things, being willing to fail and learn. And it really is an inspiration to me. I'm just thankful to call you a friend, and I appreciate you.
I'm grateful for our friendship over anything else. And you guys, you subscribe to the same mindset. My favorite quote of all time is, "Do not follow where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail." And so that's how we approach things at Swim RVA. But you're doing the exact same thing at Swim Strong, man. It's awesome.
Appreciate it, brother. Thank you again.
All right, man. Have a good one.